This episode is sponsored by KnitItHookItCraftIt.com and Lynn Rowe Knitting and Crochet. You can find links to both companies from the show notes.
Hello!
Hello!
Welcome to episode 3 of the Crochet Circle podcast. This one is called Socks Away. For you this episode we have got Yay Crochet or Nay Crochet. We have got some festival updates for you, some helpful hints. I have a book review and a couple of yarn reviews. We've got our standard magazine reviews as well. Of course, the dreaded whip wall update, some finished objects and a bit on some charity crochet projects that we have, and we'll finish off with what's good. So let's get cracking with Yay Crochet or Nay Crochet. Which one do you have, Lynn?
I have Nay Crochet this time.
What is your Nay Crochet?
Well, as you know full well, Faye. Basically, I've been testing out different types of yarn. So I had a little play with some ribbon yarn quite a few weeks ago now. That was quite nice. I'll probably talk about that another time. But the other type of yarn that I tested out was paper yarn. So quite a few yarn companies are now manufacturing what they're calling paper yarn. So I thought, I needed to have a little play with it because I was using it for a project. I didn't get on particularly well with it.
Not your favourite?
Not my favourite type of yarn. The projects can come out looking really well, but it's just quite difficult. You don't get a lot of flow going because it's quite crispy. I mean, it is softish, but then when you wrap it around your hook and try to pull your hook down through your stitch, it can just get stuck and you just have to keep doing it, and then your hook falls off, so that you can't really get a good flow going with it. It's quite slow to work with. So I did try it with crochet, but I also tried it with knitting and it wasn't better. So I wasn't a big fan. I have a few balls left to have a little play with again maybe, and I think my other concern was about getting it wet as well. I wasn't quite sure whether it would be suitable for something that was going to go outside. I doubt it very much. I think they're more for homewares and accessories and things that you're going to use inside, but I think you could probably make some quite nice bows with it. So maybe that's something I need to try.
That was your nay.
Yeah, and that was my nay.
And not everything is suitable.
No.
Mine is going to be a Yay Crochet, and Lynn will testify that I'm not really a very soppy person. But last podcast you heard me talking about the blanket that I hadn't done any work on for a year. That is now not the case. I've managed to get through quite a chunk of it actually, and one of the things that I'm doing is tagging it in between each podcast, so you can see when I finally get it to the finished objects, you'll be able to see how much I've done from one podcast to the next to the next.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's quite nice and quite interactive. But as I was crocheting it and I was looking at the colours I'd chosen a year ago, it's called shorelines, but it's like going from the shoreline out to the sea and then back into another shoreline, because it will be a mirror image blanket. And then as I was looking at all of the lovely listeners that we've had and how far around the world they're from, as I've been crocheting it, I've been thinking about this blanket stretching from our shorelines in the UK out to all of the other countries where we've got listeners. So of course quite a few of them are in English speaking countries, so America, Australia, Canada. But actually we've got listeners in Norway and Spain and Germany and in the Netherlands as well. So I quite like this idea that as I'm crocheting away, I'm sending like nice waves out to crocheters across the world.
When you said that you'd start in at the shoreline, out to sea, and then back to another shoreline, would that shoreline be in another country, and therefore would your shades of colour be a little bit different maybe?
They're not actually.
No, the same.
No, wherever you are in the world, your shoreline has to be exactly the same as the shoreline of the UK, because I've mirror imaged it and it's yarn that I'm using, which I bought from eBay. I don't really want to change that up, and I love symmetry, so that would be off the scale for me to do it in a different colour at the other side. That would just not acceptable in my world. So we'll move on to festivals. We're really hitting into yarn festival season now, and I mentioned in the last podcast that I was heading up to Edinburgh, so I was up there for the Saturday, and it was a nice festival. It's very designer led, it's very yarn led, so if what you expect from a yarn festival is to be in somewhere that smells a bit of sheep poo and has got sheep breeds in it, Edinburgh is not that type of festival. It's very much about meeting up with people, meeting up with fellow revelers, fellow people who also knit and crochet. Yeah, it's a very different angle on a yarn fest, and for that reason lots of people, you know, just flock to it. It is their main festival for the UK.
I quite like the sheep and the smells, to be honest.
I do too. Which is why when we went to Wonderwool Wales last weekend, we had an absolute ball, and we spent some money, which was bad.
I'd just like to add, I don't normally spend a lot of money at yarn festivals, so I'm going to blame Faye for making me spend money.
I'm a very bad influence, and I know it. Yeah, but we had a cracking time.
We did.
It's a really lovely festival. It takes us about 2.5 hours to get over there from Cheshire, so it's a bit of a haul, but actually I really think it's worth it. It's lovely. It's got great light, so you can see the colour of the yarn properly, which isn't always the case in festivals. It smells of sheep, and we've got some nice photos of some Wensleydales which are up on Pinterest. It's also got a really nice mix of different yarn brands, so lots that you would expect to see because they do all of the shows, and then some very localised ones as well. And it's a really nice mix of different suppliers, and in particular there's a button supplier that I only ever see at Wonderwool Wales, never see them at any of the other ones. So whilst Textile Gardens goes to most of the yarn festivals, there's another supplier that does antique and second-hand buttons, and their range is incredible, and you know every time you go it's going to be a different layer of stock, and their stuff is lovely. We both dipped into
we were there for
one.
Quite a while, weren't we, on that stall, just having a mooch, and then the guy suddenly comes out with another box and you think, oh wow, they look
what's
nice.
in there?
Yeah. Talking about Wonderwool, what I like there as well is that the stalls are quite spread apart, so the corridors between the stalls are quite wide, so you don't feel as if it's an enclosed space to the extent where you can't walk against the tide of people coming towards you. So it's really enjoyable because you can just take your time and leisurely walk around, and then the food is absolutely amazing.
It's incredible.
It's
actually,
really,
it's the best
really
of all
delicious.
of the yarn festivals.
Yeah, definitely.
There's always a queue because the food is really good. It's wholesome. It's cooked pretty much to order.
Lots of gluten-free stuff, so it's fantastic. You know, don't have to worry if you're gluten-free like I am. There's cakes, there's just everything there. It's absolutely brilliant.
And it's got a really nice atmosphere as well. Yeah. So they don't do music like some of the other yarn festivals do, but what I would say is it's light, it's airy, it's sheepy, and it's got loads of walking space and great food and really great traders as well. So for me, I'd have to be on my deathbed to not make it to Wonderwool Wales.
It's one of my favourites, and there's people there with prams, people there with dogs. You're allowed to take dogs in there because that's how much space there is really. You're not going to have a problem if you've got mobility issues with people there in with wheelchairs and things.
There were,
so
and electric scooters as well. I saw
plenty
quite a few
of
of them.
space for everyone to look around, so I like it really.
And parking and a bag bay.
Yes,
which is very important.
We needed a bag bay.
Which was supporting, I think it was the air ambulance. It was, wasn't it?
I think we paid £1 per bag.
Yeah, nice to support a good course as well. That was Wonderwool, and our little festival outings continue because we have also got Woolfest coming up, which is on the 24th and the 25th of June, and I think Lynn and I are heading up on the Friday to go and have a little sneaky peek and see what's going on up there. It's kind of similar to Wonderwool, different but similar. One of the things that they have is called the Wool Clip, which I'll tell you more about next time, but it's a really interesting exhibition of their local crafters, and it's another really nice yarn show.
I haven't been to Woolfest, so I'm looking forward to that. And we have taken photographs of our purchases from Wonderwool, so we've put them on Pinterest.
Actually, on that, I should mention this because if you ever wonder, should you go to a yarn festival on day 1 or day 2, because there's always that mix-up of if they sell out of something, it's going to sell out on day 1, but equally if you're going to get maybe a bit of a bargain, that would be on day 2. We managed a bargain, and it was something that sold out on day 1. So John Arbin, which I just love their stuff anyway, and I made a beeline for them because I wanted some more sock yarn, and they have little mini skeins of mill ends. You should have seen Lynn and I. We were like children in a sweet shop. We could barely clasp our arms together because of all of the wool that we were holding that we wanted to buy. But that was a bargain. That was £3.50 per 100 grams, and they weigh it out. So if you wanted to have cuffs, toes and heel contrasting colours for your socks, then it's absolutely ideal. It's a very affordable way of doing it, and it was lovely.
What was great was that even though they were just little mini skeins and obviously ends of yarn ones and things, they were all labelled up, so you knew exactly if it's double knitting, 4-ply, you had a good idea of what you're going to be knitting with.
And because of that, our friend Becca told me that they also have a mill membership thing. Do you know about this?
I didn't know about it,
really
to
good.
be honest.
I signed up for it yesterday. So you spend £25 with them for your mill membership. It's a membership for life. If you go down there with 4 or more people, you as a mill member get 20% off from their showroom. Or if you go to an event and you see them there, you get 10% off. You also get a free gift through the post, and you get specific newsletters, so you might know about new yarns that are coming through.
So have you had your free gift yet?
No, I did it yesterday.
Ooh,
they're good, but they're not that good.
Yeah.
I'll let you know what the free gift is. I went down the knitting route, so I think I get a skein of really nice wool.
Lovely.
But for £25,
That's
I thought,
good.
and lifetime membership, I thought that was a really
and
good
then
deal.
you get your 20% off or 10% off as well. So that's
I love
ideal.
that. We could pop a link for that in the show notes, and I don't think it's just specifically for people that are in the UK. I think it's open to everybody.
Great.
So that was a nice little find. So thank you, Becca, for that one. That's it on the festivals roundup. Apart from, well, maybe we should mention Yarndale.
Oh, well, exciting news is that Faye and I applied for a stall for Yarndale back in January when the exhibitor's application became available, and received an email a couple of weeks ago to say, yes, we have a stall. So, excitement.
Damn
and
it.
then,
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. So we've both will have our own businesses. So come and see us, come and say hello. We'll be talking about it a lot more nearer the time. We've got a lot of work to do between now and then.
So we'll be selling our wares, and maybe we might have some specific things ready for Yarndale. We'll tell you more about that in the future.
Yes.
We are busy plotting. Okay, so that rounds up the festival lineup so far, and a little bit of what you might expect in the future. We're going to move on to helpful hints, and this has really come back from a couple of Ravelry threads that we've got going for the Crochet Circle podcast. So if you haven't already gone in there, I would suggest coming on in. There's a kind of welcome board where you can introduce yourself, introduce some of the topics that you might like us to talk about. So 2 clear things have come out of that. One was about getting the tension right when you're crocheting, and the other one was a question mark over stylish crochet and questioning some of the patterns that are available and trying to find sources for more contemporary crochet. So Lynn's going to take you on this one.
So I'm just going to talk through some tips about how to measure your tension with crochet. Tension is often called gauge, so it's the number of stitches and rows of a particular stitch or stitch pattern in a defined square of crochet fabric, and this is usually measured over 4 inches or 10 centimetres. Your crochet tension or gauge will be determined by the size of the hook and yarn that you're using. So the tension required for your pattern will always be listed at the beginning of the pattern. Where the materials section is, there should also be a tension section as well. And it's essential that you match the tension to get the right size of fabric and therefore the right size of your garment. Because if you crochet too tightly, your garment will end up too small, and equally if you crochet too loosely, your garment will end up too big. So then you'll get to the end, all that hard work, and it won't fit you very well.
You have something ill-fitting.
So similar to knitters, everybody crochets slightly differently, so the likelihood is that we all have a very slightly different crochet tension. So this is often determined by the way you're holding the hook and yarn. Even if the same person is crocheting and they put that down and maybe they come back to it a few days later, if you sat in a different position, I've found this myself, or you've just got a different mindset that particular night, maybe you're a little bit stressed or you're more relaxed than you were a previous night, your crochet tension can actually vary in your own work. So it's something just to be mindful of. To check your tension, although it tells you how many stitches there are per 10 centimetres, it's recommended that you crochet a larger square than that to begin with as a test. So maybe work a chain until it measures about 6 inches, and then do your double crochet or your treble, whatever the stitch is, over that 6 inches, and work in the pattern for 6 inches so that you end up with a 6-inch square or a 15 centimetre square. And then you can pop that flat down with a hard ruler, mark out 0, mark out 10 centimetres, put a pin on either side, and then count the number of stitches between the 2 pins, and then you work out the same. You do exactly the same for the vertical rows. So then you'll be able to see, have I got the right number of stitches and the right number of rows within my 10 centimetres that I've marked out. Now if you find that you have too many stitches, so if the pattern says you should have 22 stitches for 10 centimetres and you have 25, then your tension is tight, so you've created more stitches than you should have done within that 10 centimetre length. So what you would have to do is to make a new tension square and use a larger hook so that the stitches are larger and you get less stitches then per 10 centimetre.
So I know one of the questions that people often have is, what do you mean by larger hook? Do you mean that you'd move from a 4 to a 5mm, or would you go from a 4mm to a 4.5mm? What's up a hook size or down a hook size?
So when people say go up a hook size, they just mean to the next available size. So for example, if you look at like the 3mm range, you've got 3mm, you can get 3.25 with a crochet hook, you can get 3.5, 3.75, then you're on to 4mm. So you could try 3.25. If you've only 1 or 2 stitches out, you might just want to go to 3.25, but if you're more than that, you might think, oh, I need to go up to 3.5. But with 4mm, you don't really have a choice. You've only got 4mm, 4.5, 5. So it's just go to the next available size and give it a try.
It's something that comes with experience as well,
it is,
and understanding your personal tension.
Like most people know if they crochet quite tightly or if they crochet quite loosely. They are aware of that.
My egg hats tell me I'm quite a tight crocheter.
But conversely, if you have too few stitches, so if you should have 22 stitches per 10 centimetres and you only have 20, you have a loose tension because you made the stitches a little bit too big. So therefore you need to go down a hook size to make your stitches smaller and hopefully then get the 22 stitches within the 10 centimetres.
So that makes sense. But we'll get this written up on show notes as well. Just a quick few bullet points for how to make it work.
And what I would recommend as well is once you've worked up your tension square is to label it up, keep it, document it and put it away, so that if you come to use that yarn or something very similar again, you'll know exactly, okay, I needed to use a 4.5mm and not a 4.5.
You've already done the work.
Yeah. So it might seem like a bit of a pain and a bit of extra work to begin with, but once you've done it and documented it, it's there forever.
It's done.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Good tips.
And then the other question was about stylish crochet. I think it was a lady called Jen on one of the
This
Ravelry.
is actually my best friend.
Is it?
And she has real issues trying to find things that she would actually want to crochet. She knitted when she was little, a long time ago, but she loves crocheting. Her issue is every time she goes on Ravelry and finds something that she likes, it's something that's knitted and it's not a crocheted item, so it's not something that she would go to make, and she's getting increasingly frustrated.
Yeah, I think the problem with crocheted garments is that there is this sort of 1970s vintage style attached to them, and I think possibly it's the nature of the stitch that then creates that look, and then you automatically associate it with the 1970s granny square things, and it is more difficult with crochet to create something that's nice and drapey unless you tend to have to use the looser stitches, so then they are a little bit see-through as well, but you can just wear them over the top of a little camisole. But I mean, I have got some favourite designers really that do stylish crochet pieces. So what I've done is I've just made a little list of them which I can share with the readers, and then if anybody out there uses patterns from another designer that I've not listed, or they've got their own favourite preferences, just let us know. We'd love to hear,
because it's that information sharing, isn't it? So whether that would be through Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, send stuff to us on Pinterest or Ravelry. We'd love to hear who your favourite contemporary designers are, but I think particularly for upper body wear, so maybe camisoles jumpers, pullovers, cardigans would be really lovely to see what people have got to suggest.
There's lots of lovely scarves and wraps and things out there. It's just when you come to the garments. So for me, as I say, this is just my own list here. I like Marie Warlin, who was a rowing designer. In fact, she was head designer from, I think, about 2005 to 2013, and then she started her own design company, and now she self-publishes all her own work and her own books.
Her stuff is
it's beautiful.
Incredible.
She has got a nice selection of crocheted garments. She does knit as well, so that you can find both there. They're both equally beautiful, and they are really, really modern and stylish. They're very pretty in design, but they're not over fussy, because a bit like Faye, I'm not a fussy person and I'm not very girly, but I do love Marie's work because it's just gorgeous, but it's not frilly or, it's not over the top. It's just like, wow, that's sophisticated and nice.
I think that's the word, and that's what Jenny's trying to find, is some sophisticated outerwear crochet.
You could actually wear them and they would look amazing. She does have a crochet book which I did buy online recently. I haven't made anything from it yet, but I had a quick flick through. It's called Filigree and it's collection 3, and it's really feminine summer designs. I think it uses Rowan Summer Light 4-ply. But I did have a look in my stash and I have found a little bag.
You surprised me.
Yes, I've somehow, amongst my stash, have enough 4-ply cotton to make a garment. And I remember buying this particular cotton off eBay when I very first went back to knitting and crochet, probably about 8 or 10 years ago. I've had it all that time. Kept thinking, I'll get rid of this, get rid of it. No, it'll make something nice. So I think I have about 500 grams, although one of them, the colour has gone a little bit, I think, because they're all the same lot. So I don't know why one looks a different colour. Perhaps I've left it in the sun or something, I don't know. So I could make one of these items with it if I have time at some time soon.
I just say look forward to that, listeners, but the caveat of if I have time.
If I have time. And I think later this year Marie is also launching winter crochet in October. So we'll put Marie's website. She has a lovely website. It's amazing, and she also has all the garments and her designs on a Ravelry page, so we can pop those on there for you. You can have a look. You can buy individual patterns as well, I think, off Marie's Ravelry page. So that's Marie. Another person on my list is Joanne's Grace, and Joanne is also known as Not So Granny, mainly because she says she was fed up of the grandma image that knitting and crochet has. So she knew she could make beautiful and fashionable things from her crochet, not just granny square waistcoats. So her designs are stylish, wearable pieces. That's what she focuses on. They usually have a seamless construction, so you start from the top generally and work down, so you haven't got lots of sewing up to do at the end. A little bit vintage inspired really, but they've got a really fresh modern feel. They really are lovely. She loves to work with beautiful yarns, and she tries to design items that will last and not go out of fashion. So yeah, absolutely lovely.
Another one to look at.
Her work is often in magazines, so you may have seen Joanne's work. If you've seen a nice cardigan and jumper, it might be Joanne's actually. She works with yarn companies quite a lot too, and she just wants to bring to the market fashionable crochet that you can wear day in, day out. So again,
please.
We've got Joanne's details for her website, so I'd urge you to go and have a look at her work as well. It's really nice. You can buy Joanne's patterns individually on Ravelry. You can buy books from the website, I think, as well, so it's all out there. And another designer that often works with Joanne is Kat Goldin. Kat also designs her own range of patterns, so she's got knitting and crochet, and they worked together, Joanne and Kat, and founded the Yarn Project, and she also writes books for various publishing companies and lots of magazines too, so you might have seen Kat's work out there.
From the first issue of Crochet Now, it was Kat's cardigan that I pulled out as being something that actually I would crochet. It's really nice.
Kat's also a columnist and contributes regularly to Simply Crochet, and she's also a freelance photographer, so Yeah, her work looks amazing. She has worked with Joanne's Grace, recently published a new collection called 3 from the Top, which is a collection of 3 cardigans that you can make a couple of them in children's size all the way up to adult size, which is quite good.
That's nice,
good idea.
yeah.
So that's great, and they launched that at Wonderwall Wales, so we went and said hello, didn't we?
Yeah, we actually went and met with them, and they're just
Really
lovely ladies.
Yeah.
Very passionate about crochet, and exactly what you said, bringing a fresh look to crochet pieces. You'll hear a little bit more about some of their work actually, because it's their book that I'm reviewing, and we're going to put lots of photos up, including some whip photos, and within that, one of my whips is one of Joanne's shawl patterns from their second shawl book.
Yeah,
It's called Mist Kingfisher, and I'm really enjoying doing that.
there were a couple of shawls that I spotted when we went to have a look at their stall, and I received some yarn for review yesterday, and so I think in my mind I've got one of those shawls in my mind to test out this new yarn, so but I'll talk more about that another time.
I can thoroughly recommend Mist Kingfisher with short row shaping. It's quite an interesting construction. It's a nice one.
So that's Marie, Joanne and Kat, and then there's just one other designer called Vicky Brown. I don't know a lot about Vicky, so I haven't got too much to say here, but she does design really modern and elegant wearable crochet garments too. So I've seen her quite a lot in Inside Crochet magazine. I think that's where I've seen a lot of Vicky's work, and you can find Vicky as well on her own website, Vicky Brown Designs, and she has a Ravelry shop too. But they're really nice pieces. Again, you might recognise them because these people that I've mentioned today are probably the main crochet designers for garments, so a lot of the work's out there quite regular. The images, you do see them a lot.
But again, if you know someone who we don't know, please pass it along. We'd love to see what else is out there. There are also a couple of books which I'll probably provide details for and show notes about making crocheted items fit better.
Right.
I was having a bit of a scour the other week, just in context of this part of the podcast, so it might be that you already have a design that you really love but it just doesn't quite fit you properly, and I think these books may help with that, so we'll provide those links too. So that was it on the questions from our lovely listeners and bits and pieces that they wanted a bit of help for. So we're going to move on to reviews section. I'm going to start off with a book review, and as an opening statement, one of the things that I wanted to say is you might get very few book reviews from us, because our intention is if we're going to review a book, we will have actually crocheted some of the pieces from it, so we're not going to flick through a crochet book and say yes, we like this, we like this, we like this. Actually, it's going to get a thorough review from us, which is quite helpful because you don't get that many new books coming through with crochet, so we're not going to be bombarded with lots of books that we feel that we have to review. So the one that I've chosen this time is called Crochet Yeah, which I think you kind of have to say with a fist pump, like a crochet yeah.
I think it's definitely has to have a fist pump,
and it deserves a fist pump as well.
It does.
It's more of a booklet than a book. It has 6 patterns in it. There are 2 hat patterns, a pair of mittens, a scarf, a cowl and a pair of socks, and they're very good at saying what level you need to be at to be able to accomplish the patterns. Some of the stuff is beginner, like the Worcester scarf, which I've done, and then the most difficult thing are the socks, which are the Evesham socks, and they're down as kind of intermediary level, so I did them as well, so we've got both sides of the scale. And I just really wanted to try crochet socks. I
haven't tried crochet socks, believe it or not, but it is on my list to do.
I have had little fingers of fire over the last few
you
weeks.
Have. I don't know how you do it.
I don't know either. It's because I don't look up and speak to my family. I'm just like, oh God, I've got to hook more stuff up. So I've been on a little sock journey, which is why the episode is called Socks Away, because it's a very socky episode. They were the 2 projects that I did from the book, and I was really impressed. For something that's booklet size rather than full book, it's got charts in there, it's also got written instructions for the patterns. I really liked it. So because I've got quite a lot to say about it, what I'm probably going to do is do a proper review of the Crochet Yeah book, and then also a review, because one of the things that marries up with the booklet is the socks yeah which is a yarn by Rachel Coupey at Coop Knits. I can provide those 2 things, but I'll do them probably as a blog post from Knit It, Hook It, Craft It, and then we'll provide the link in through the show notes.
That sounds like a good plan.
But yeah, I'd certainly recommend the book because it's got something for people of all stages, and you can do crochet socks.
Yeah,
so I'll use that as my indicator in particular. I crocheted the socks up using Socks Yeah in Iolite, which is shade 109. Really lovely shade, and I enjoyed working with it. I'll come on to that in a minute. So when I did the first one, they crocheted up really quickly. So we've both got one in front of us. It's a really nice kind of shell and puff stitch pattern with a half treble sole. So when I'd finished the first one, I was like, I'm not sure, it seems a bit flappy, and it looks like it will be too big, and it doesn't look like it will stay up, and it's quite a lacy pattern, so I don't think it's going to be warm. And I finished it, maybe it was one of those where Matthew said, I'm going to bed, are you coming up? Yeah,
I'll be there in a minute.
I'll be there in a minute, just one more row. And maybe an hour and a half later, and I think I finished this at about half midnight one night last week. I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to do the other one. And then I fully had to eat my words about 10 seconds later, because I put it on my foot. I'd had bare feet all night, so I was frozen. I've got a real issue with not recognising that my feet are cold. Put it on, and this yarn was so lovely and warm. The pattern, whilst it is much baggier than you would get from a fitted knitted sock, you just have to recognise a crochet sock is a very different beast.
Yeah.
And actually it stayed on, and it stayed up, and it was warm, and the yarn was delightful.
The yarn feels really soft
lovely.
and warm, because I've got it on my hand here.
Lovely.
And also, even though
it.
the sole is double crochet, it's really nice and soft. The pattern's really pretty, and this yarn is lovely. It's like a sort of mix of bluish, lilac-y, purpley tones.
It's
really
gorgeous.
Lovely.
So I said it's something like mother of pearl when you get those blues coming through.
Yeah,
it's really nice.
that's a good
It's
analogy.
actually half treble on the sole.
Oh, is it half treble that?
But that shows you how close I am.
Yeah, you're quite tight
with my crochet. So these I have now actually also worn all day. I've washed them.
Wow,
they're fine.
Wash them.
So
good job. It's on my hand.
I know, so you get your hand in it. I wore these all day on Tuesday, and then I've got a wool wash in my washing machine which goes at 40 degrees, and although the yarn says 30, even my cashmere goes through on the 40 degree wash through my washing machine, and they've come out and they got line dried, finished off in the radiator, and they are back to the shapes that they were when I crocheted them. Really, really comfortable. So I wore them all day long, and as I'm stood now, I stand at my desk all day long. I've got one of these rising desks, and I never sit down during the day, so I stood in these all day long, and I was concerned that I would get the imprint and it would hurt my feet. Not a chance. They were really, really comfortable. So really pleased to eat my words, because if you haven't yet mastered sock crocheting, this is a really good pattern.
Also, considering you've washed them, there's no pilling or anything on the yarn. It's really, really still looks like it's new.
It's lovely.
Not been washed.
So I've added this project and the cowl, which it's the Worcester scarf, but I don't really wear scarves, I wear cowls, so I made it into a cowl. So if you want to have a look at that, then please do. I am Ma Dashper on Ravelry, but if you go into the show notes page under the Contact Us tab, our Ravelry details are on there, so you can go in and see these two projects. So I may as well just continue on into the yarn review.
Yep.
It's lovely. It's got such a nice twist on it, the Crochet yarn. We've already talked about the colour and the fact that it's got this slight marled effect going into heathery purples and almost a pinky, and then into the blue. It's really delightful to work with. So I did the crocheted sock in Crochet, and then at the same time I was also reviewing Regia's Arna and Carlos design line yarn, which I wanted to have a look at because we'd interviewed Arna and Carlos, but also wanted to look at the difference with something that's more an engineered sock yarn, the difference between working with that in crochet and working with that in knitted. So if you look at the photos, you will see that with the knitted sock, I've used the Sock Yeah yarn for the toe, heel and cuff of the knitted sock using the Regia stuff. So sorry, that's a bit complicated, but what that allowed me to do was knit up the same sock with two different types of yarn and then compare and contrast them on the same sock for feel and for knitting. Now, the comparison between the two, and they are very different yarns, so it's maybe a little unfair to compare them, but the Sock Yeah yarn is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, suggested 2.25mm needle, but I was using a 2.5mm for both.
Okay.
And it's machine washable at 30 degrees. Now, coming on to the Regia yarn, that's got the same mix wool content, so it's 75% wool, 25% polyamide, and they're saying 2 to 3mm needles, but again, it was 2.5mm because it was socks that I was making with them. And again, that is machine washable. The Socks Yeah is £5.45 per 50 grams. The Regia is £5.19 per 50 grams.
So very similar in cost.
They're really similar.
Yeah.
I would say the difference in quality is quite far apart for what I'm looking for in a sock yarn. The Socks Yeah is soft,
It's
silky
really soft.
It's beautiful on your feet. The Regia stuff, whilst yes, it's patterned, so money has gone into the origination of the design, and I like the design. I like the little Fairas, so cute, and Winky will be over the moon when he gets his little socks. But actually for me, if these were going on my feet, my money would be going on Socks Yeah every time.
Okay.
Because, again, reflecting on the fact that I don't do very patterned stuff, so I like quite plain stuff, and if there's pattern, I prefer it to be in the pattern design rather than in the yarn design. But just on feel, if I couldn't see and I was just going on touch alone, Socks Yeah.
Yeah, the Regia is a little bit thicker, but then again it is knitted, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we've got comparing it with the Crochet, which does feel a lot softer, to be fair.
But then even on the cuff, if you're feeling between the cuff of Socks Yeah and the main
difference.
body,
Yeah.
it is rougher, and the Socks Yeah is just.
But I suppose if you
lovely.
wanted like a hiking sock, something for within your
Then
boots,
perfect.
then this would be the Regia would be perfect.
Would be
wouldn't
perfect.
It? Yeah.
Although I would still hike in Socks Yeah as well. And so within that, then what you can also see on the photos are the difference between a little crocheted sock booty. It's very cute.
They are incredibly cute.
Just to show you the difference, if you're going to buy sock yarn and you want to crochet it, it gives you an indication of what it might come out like. Now, to me, there is no contest. It has to be knitted. If you're going to get a highly patterned designed yarn, honestly, I would say it's a shame to put it through a crochet pattern like this
I
one.
absolutely agree, because it's been designed for knitting, and
Yeah.
that patterning is designed to show with stocking stitch. But with crochet, you just don't get the smoothness of the stitch, so therefore you don't see the pattern. It's just completely different. And I think we mentioned this, didn't we, when we spoke with Arne and Carlos?
We did.
I think Arne had said that a lady had created a granny squares with it,
And it worked.
that worked. But that was about it, really.
Yeah.
I think so. Maybe I've got a little bit left over that Faye passed to me, so maybe I'll create a little granny square
see how
and we'll
that
just see
looks.
how it works.
Equally, I did some double crochet, half treble and some treble with it. It looked okay, but if you were finding probably a better stitch rather than a standard stitch, you would find something that worked for it. So maybe the granny square is the way forward. But I thought I'll just do it because it's a good.
I think it's a
good
really
exercise to show people.
Definitely.
If you've got lots of this yarn, are you going to use it for knitting and crochet? Take a look at the two little socks that I did. I'm actually going down to see Jenny and her two boys in a weekend or so, so I'm hoping to get a little photo of the Duke with his little baby socks on and Winky with his little knitted Fairas on. So cute baby photos shall come shortly.
Look forward to
hopefully.
seeing those.
Yeah. That's it on the yarn front. I've had quite a lot of fun, and that's why it's been so socky. So a baby pair crocheted, a Winky pair knitted, and then my crocheted socks from the Crochet Yeah book. And then I also tried to quickly drill through a pair of my normal sock pattern with the John Arbon.
Hey, as a single woman knitting and crochet machine,
I
I've
am
come to the
fingers of
conclusion.
fire. And it's not like I don't do anything else. I'm very busy, but I seem to just be able to whiz through projects at the moment. I think this podcast has also spurred me on to crack on with my finished objects, have fewer whips, and really start something, finish it. Have a few projects on the go, because I couldn't just do one thing, but I want to be able to crack on.
I think that's a few listeners have said it. They listened to the podcast and then they thought, right, I'm either going to tidy up my stash. So we had a few photographs of that, which was great, and sort out the whips, get them out, see what's what, get rid of some, carry on with some others, try to finish them off. So yeah, that was really good feedback.
It's nice that we've inspired people to get on with their crafting. And now on to magazine reviews.
So we have 4 magazines this month to review. Both Faye and I have had a good look through all the magazines. We have Inside Crochet issue 76, we have Let's Get Crafting issue 80, Simply Crochet issue 44, and Woman's Weekly Knitting and Crochet for May 2016. We have a full review that's written up in the show notes, and we're just going to really have a quick chat about our top 2 makes, really what we've chosen out of all of the magazines.
One each.
And I think the project I would really like to make is a celandine wrap. It's by Emma Wright, and she says it was inspired by the flower of the same name, and she's used Fibre Company yarn.
I haven't tried their stuff yet.
Well, this one, it was an Aran weight, so it's quite a chunky neck scarf wrap. Cumbria worsted it's called, in Buttermere, which is one of my favourite shades, I have to say. I think that's what attracts me to it the most, is the colour. It's like a yellow ochre colour. You just need 2 100-gram balls, which is great.
Okay, so quite affordable as well.
Mm.
And for me, it would be the Blossom Cushion, which is in Simply Crochet issue 44. It's a really nice take on an oriental theme. Quite plain, but I quite like the fact that it's a standard cushion base, so you're learning that. And then the blossom flowers are crocheted up in a really beautiful pink, but also that they're using embroidery for the branches for the blossom to sit on. And I really like, even if it's still thread based and yarn based, but actually using different crafting types to get an overall really nice finished project. I like that mixed media approach. And that one really pops out as something that's very makeable. We're moving on to my favourite bit, the whip wall. Lynn's least favourite bit, the whip wall. So I have a question to pose, and I would really love answers from listeners. When is a whip not a whip? I think if you're doing a pair of socks and you've done one of your socks, then your finished sock belongs in the finished object camp. And if you haven't yet started your other sock, then that's not a whip.
But it's not completely finished because you've only have one sock, so it's not very useful.
You should see Baby Bird. She never has a pair of matching socks on her feet. I see your point.
I see your point, yes.
And I would never not wear matching socks. But I like this idea that it's a foot in both camps with a pair of socks.
So you don't have as many whips.
It is a fudge, and I have counted it in my whips for this time round. So how many have you got?
Well, last time
she scatters
talked
for her
about
notebook.
when I get my little notebook, and I think I've taken a photograph of this just to demonstrate that I do have 21, or did
not anymore.
Past tense, have 21 whips. So I written them all down, and I identified who they're for. It's like, if I don't know what the whip's for, do I really need to keep it as a whip, or should I frog it and use the wool for something else? So that was my reason why I've listed everything down. So I basically finished, it's the simplest neck cozy that you could imagine, literally just cast on something like 122 stitches with a 4-ply tweed yarn. I think it was one of the charity shop hauls that my daughter brought me one day. It's called Rowan Spun. I mean, it's discontinued. Obviously it's old, but it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's 25 gram skein each one, and there must have been about 40 in 2 different colourways. One was a greeny with lovely little neps in, and one was more of a brown. So still have quite a lot of this yarn left, but it takes about 3 to make a really deep neck cozy, which I used 4mm needles with, even though it's 4-ply, because it just gives it a more open stitch. So I've made a couple of those so far. So just need to block it out and spread the stitches out a little bit more. So that was one finished whip, ticked off my list. Done. And the next one that I did was I finished my Bacta scarf, which is on Ravelry. It's really popular. It's just a very simple garter stitch scarf that you increase on one side every 4 or 6 rows. I can't remember. I think it's every 4 rows. Mm-hmm. And I had 2 skeins of Manos del Uruguay, and I think I'd got to the point where I probably had about 4 inches left, bearing in mind I'm on the decrease, so I've only got about 20 stitches left in my project bag for about a year, thinking, I don't really like it, it's so simple, it's just garter stitch. And then I was like, come on, Lynn,
I don't think you've really taken that off since you finished it.
I haven't. I wear it all the time.
And previously you didn't really wear knitted scarves.
Because I struggle, you see, I struggle with sensitive skin, so if there's a little bit of, fibre, even if I can even struggle with acrylic if it has lots of little fibres floating off it. starts making my nose go all strange. So I do have to be really careful. So I thought, no, come on Lynn, get this sorted. So I finished it off. I had enough yarn to make 2 little teeny weeny pom-poms. So anytime I can add a pom-pom I will. Pom-poms on the end, and I absolutely love it. I mean, the colours are all my favourite colours anyway. Mustards, blues, teal, quite a nice bright blue that just lightens it all up a little bit. And I absolutely love it. And I'm going to make another one, but I'm going to make it longer. So that's my so that's 2 whips off my list. Then I had a really horrible join as you go blanket that I'd been working on with all horrible acrylic yarns. That, not that all acrylic yarn is horrible, but the ones in this particular blanket, they were just, I don't even know what they were, where they were from. They were just hard and not very nice, and thought, what am I going to do with this? I wouldn't give it to anybody. I don't want it.
Yeah. So I like the idea that you said that if you list it and say, well, what am I going to do with it? So not just, I have to finish this because I've started a bit. Who's going to be the recipient? Is it me? Would I actually want to give it away? I think that's a really good approach.
And what I'd done is I'd started this blanket. When I did demos, it was to show people how to join as you go. So I'd just get another, it was all in blues. It was actually not that bad. It wasn't hideous. But I decided, well, if I do a demonstration again, I want it to look a bit nicer than that as well. So let's inspire people, not put them off crochet. So that one, actually, I have to say, it went in the bin. It's gone.
But if you're not, like, if you didn't enjoy working with the yarn and you can't charity shop it because it's not that kind of a project, then what's the point?
So that went, and then I had started a little hexagon blanket, which was do a hexagon a day. I don't know, it's about 2 years ago.
How many hexagons did you do?
About 30, maybe.
This reminds me, when I was growing up, I kind of quite liked to take that, and I wrote to them once saying, I'm going to write to you every day. I wrote to them once saying, I'm going to write to you every day. Parallels to be drawn.
Oh, so the only problem was, it was with, I had loads of Debbie Bliss Baby Cash Merino that I'd used for these. I know.
Horrible predicament.
I know, so it's like, oh no. Well, I did start unravelling, but then I just ended up with these really little bits. Yeah. And some of them had been little bits that I'd tied together because I was literally using up oddments. So again, that went in the bin as well. But there was only 30 and they were really tiny, so it wasn't a lot. I know it's really bad.
Use it or throw it.
Yes. So I've never ever done that before. I've never thrown anything away, but I'm getting pretty desperate here. So needs must.
21 is really on your mind.
And then the only other thing that I did was I started messing around with something for the crochet circle, which I won't going to talk about now, but I'll talk about next time. And I just needed some orange or something a little bit bright just to lift it, the thing that I was making. And I knew that in my whips I had, again, I was messing around with join as you go and showing people, and this was going to make a little cushion cover, but I'd used the yarn for something else. So I didn't even have the yarn left. So I thought, I know, I will undo these, because I needed to use some of the orange bits that were in the centres of some of the granny squares. So that's what I did, unravelled and made a few little orange squares for my current project that I'm working on. So that was perfect.
Brilliant.
So that's 5 things, 5 projects that have either been finished or they've gone out of my whip basket. So I'm quite pleased.
What's your number?
So now 21 take away 5 is
16.
She says pattern checker. That wasn't very good. Was it really? I can't even add up.
Although, to be fair, it's coming up for 10 to 2. We haven't had lunch yet, so that's probably why.
So yeah, I've got now I'm going through them one at a time now. I am working on a little lace crochet shawl that was in a magazine called Crochet Gifts, and the design it's called Odaletta Shawl. It's really pretty, and the designer is Anna Nikopirovics. It's just very light, it's very summery and pretty, and I think it's on Ravelry as one of my whips. I can put a picture up anyway in the show notes. And it's not even lots and lots of rows. I think it's about 15 rows in total, because it isn't a deep shawl, which is perfect because I don't like deep V shawls really. So it's more of a scarfy shawl. But I'm just contemplating now, the reason I haven't finished it off is, do I add beads or not? And I wasn't going to add beads to it, So I'd set off crocheting, and then when I've started the part where you meant to add beads to it, I think it needs the beads because I think it'll wait. I think otherwise it isn't going to work. So I've just come to a standstill, but when we go to Black Sheep, I'm going to bring it with me and see if I can match up some nice coloured beads.
Excellent.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to be working on next. So hopefully I'll have that one finished.
So that's nice. You know how many whips you've got them worked out, who they're for, and you know which one you're trying to tick off. So you're trying to do that before the next episode?
Yeah.
Look at me applying pressure.
I'm going to try and do that, and then there's a couple more whips that I know probably don't need a great deal of work, so maybe I can get those finished as well, but I'm not promising, but I'm hoping that one, the Odaletta shawl, is definitely done by next time.
Brilliant.
And I can wear it.
Fashioning it.
Yes.
So that's covered your finished objects and your whip wall.
Just aside though, I do have a blanket that I made. It wasn't on my whips because it wasn't a whip. I just decided to start a granny square blanket with some bits of yarn that I found in my box upstairs.
When did you start that?
Oh, it took me perhaps a couple of weeks, just a few hours here and there. I mean, it's really, really quick. It's just literally a granny square that goes bigger and bigger. But what I did was I mooched through my Natura 4-ply yarn, which I've just seemed to have loads of really nice colours in that, left over from various projects. And I had a lot of colours that graduated quite nicely into each other. So I just picked maybe 5 or 6.
So is that a start and a finish?
It was start and a finish.
Episode to the next?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I've got a blanket now, wondering who I'm going to give it to, and then we have a friend who announced she was expecting a baby, so I'm thinking, okay.
So this is our first. A lot of the ladies that come to Wool Gathering Sandbach have got children, but we've never it's about a year and a quarter that I've been running the group, and we've never had somebody be pregnant during their time at Wool Gathering Sandbach, and our friend is, and I'm so excited.
I think this baby is going to be covered in knitting and crochet,
wool,
definitely.
and all of the ladies, I'm sure, around Wool Gathering will be making her stuff.
Yeah, I think we're all excited.
So you reckon that's what it's going to be for her baby?
It's quite blue, so we'll see. Not that really matters, to be honest.
Brilliant.
And how about you, Faye? How are you getting on with your...
I'm just trying to remember how many I had. I think I thought it was 8. Sorry, I'm just rustling to pull the whip wall out.
Can I just tell you at this moment in time as well, whilst I've just been talking about my whips, Faye has actually unravelled something. It's gone. It was on a desk 10 minutes ago, and now we don't have a blanket anymore. We have balls of wool instead.
So I had 10 items, of which I've got through quite a lot of them, so it's probably easier to talk about my finished objects first. I referred in the last spoken episode about the Edinburgh Yarn Festival knitted scarf. It's called Endless Possibilities, and that's a pattern that I will probably write up properly and put up on Ravelry, because I'm really proud of that. So that got done, and then on the way back from Edinburgh Yarn Festival I had some leftover yarn from Endless Possibilities, so I crocheted up a neck warmer which is called Nougat Neck, because I like having stupid names. It's the colours of nougat without the pistachio bits in it. Mm-hmm. I like alliteration as well, so Nougat Neck is what it is. So they've both been done, and probably one of the things I should talk about is that I now wake up in the middle of the night. I wake up every morning and I have got designs and patterns running through my head and stitch ideas, and I've never had this before. I'm reasonably creative, but I've never had the point where I've got stuff I wake up and I think there's a design there, there's a pattern there, and clearly there's a release that I need to get out. So I have also started designing things, and with that, of course, what you have to do is be really thorough. So the thing that I've designed, which I might be able to talk about next episode actually, because again there are lots of things going on. So I've made 4 variations of that now to check it in different yarn weights and make sure that I can get the stitch counts right. So 4 of them, and they weren't even on my original whip list. And then I've made some nice little bits and pieces with, I call them yarn straggles. So Lynn's teacup is currently sat on a little coaster that I made. That was with a yarn straggle of some British breed wool that I got at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and made into one of the shawls that I was just referring to, and then I made the coasters out of the odds and sods. As I've already talked about, there were the little crocheted socks for the Duke and the socks for Winky, the knitted ones. my Crochet Worcester cowl, which was using stash yarn, so double brownie points for that. Evesham socks, which I've already spoken about. The other night I quickly made some mushrooms and a bat. I'll come on to that and why I've been crocheting up a bat and some mushrooms, but it's to do with a charity project that I want to get involved in, and I would love you guys to get involved in. They're all my FOs. It's, like I say, fingers of fire is what I've had over the last few weeks. And a sock, which was the John Arben one that I referred to. So I have got one done, which I finished off last night, and I'm probably just under halfway through the next one. I suspect that my whips are going to be quite a few socks. That's what I see in my future.
Great. So how many whips do you have now, Faye?
Well, as Lynn has said, I have just unravelled one, so that was a blanket that I was doing for Baby Bird. I was knitting it and I just stopped feeling the love for it, and what I'm actually going to do is crochet it instead, because it will be faster. And I found a stitch that I really love. I've got some really beautiful blankets in the house, and she hauls them over and then that prods her feet through them and pulls them really taut. And she's always hearing, will you stop that? That's my best blanket. Will you get your feet out of it? Because she's always poking her little toes. So I need something that's really dense. And the knitted one, I just think she would have ruined it like first time out. So I need to be careful about the stitch that I take for that. So that's gone. So that leaves me with half a sock to do. That's whip 1. That'll be done by Saturday. That'll be done, if not tonight. Whip 2 is the Shorelines blanket. So that's ongoing. I reckon I've probably got maybe another 3 podcasts in that before that's finished. Certainly before the year is out, I'd like to have that done. Mist Kingfisher, the shawl that I've already referred to, that one's going to be a really long burn because I'm doing that as a crochet along with my friend Jenny, and she doesn't get that much crochet time, and I don't want to get ahead of her. We want to run it out roughly the same time, so we're sending WhatsApp pictures back and forward. So mine's very neutral and hers is grey and pink and looks fabulous. You might see that one on the whip wall for a good few months before that gets done. And then I also have the TARDIS cushion, which is ongoing, which you can see in the photos. It is basically the TARDIS with fleur-de-lis coming out of it, and it will be a cushion for our kitchen. But I just love
and it's that
crochet
needlework,
knitting.
Faye?
It is, yeah. So it's cross stitch, and it's really nice, but it's not crochet or knitting. So I've got 5 because there's also the little Winky scarf, which is the post back and forward one with Winky. But like I say, I'm going to see him, so I'll probably sit and do some crochet with him. But I've gone from 10, I've halved. No, 2. Oh, actually, and the other one that I am yet to unravel, but I'm not going to count it, was the contemporary cushion that I was doing from last episode, the Intarsia crochet. I'm just not feeling the love for it, so I'm going to unravel it all, have another think, and I might keep it in a project bag once I've unravelled it and come at it again. But for now, I'm enjoying doing socks and other bits and pieces so much that I don't want to start working on something where I feel like, oh, I don't want to do this. But I will come back to it because I like to learn skills, and I don't like to say I tried that and I didn't like it. So yeah, down to 5. Woo-hoo!
Absolutely brilliant.
Good start for me.
My aim is to just, I had 21, I would like to get down to half to begin with, and then half again. So back down to 5. 5's the magic number. That kind of hems up the finished objects and the whip. So we put loads of photos up on Pinterest. We'll pop some on Instagram as well, but you can see what we're up to, and generally a lot of our stuff goes on Ravelry, so you can have a good mooch around and see what we're up to. Love to get some feedback from you. I'd love to see what you're up to as well. That your whips and your finished objects. Some of the stuff on the finished objects Ravelry thread. We don't have that many people engaging with it yet, but the stuff that's in there is really nicely executed, beautiful stuff, lovely colour choices. There's a lady that was speaking to yesterday from Germany, I think her name is Beta, and she's doing a poncho in yarn that she's hand spun. Wow. It's incredible. Bright red, looks really funky with little pom-poms down the side. So I've asked her to model it for us next time. So she's waiting for better weather. I was really pleased to see one lady had finished off the crochet along that I did for Woman's Weekly, and it was just really nice to see that everything worked well. It looked absolutely great. She'd done a really good job, so it's really chuffed to see that. So that brings us quickly on to a charity project. I mentioned bats and mushrooms earlier. I'm a huge fan of the National Trust and what they do to preserve some of our buildings within the UK and some of the estates and the land, and Arlington Mill, which is in North Devon, have this really great idea where they have woolen woods
basically what they do is encourage crafters, and you could be a needle felter, you could be a knitter or a crocheter, encourage you to make birds, flowers, mushrooms, mammals, all sorts of things that would live in a British woodland or remind you of autumnal times, because it opens from the 27th of August through to the 30th of October, and they open up part of the woodland and they have a display of in the Woollen Woods, and it's incredible. We'll put some photos up on the show notes. The lady that you can see knitting in the middle of the woodland is Natalie, who runs the project for Arlington Mill, and I just thought it was a really nice thing to get involved in. And so I've made a bat and some mushrooms, because what they particularly want, they've got lots of flowers, and what they want are fungus, if people are happy to crochet that for them, and mammals. And I thought, well, why don't we open it out? I've got a tiny little woodland patch. And when I say a woodland patch, I've got a sycamore and a holly bush, but it looks more woodlandy than it is, outside the girl office. And I figured if people wanted to help out, then they could send stuff to us. I'll be able to give them my address if they message us directly, and then they can send all of their crocheted or knitted or whatever they've done, and then I'll create a mini crochet circle woodland scene out in my huge estate park woodland, a holly bush and a sycamore tree, but then we can have a little crochet circle mini woodland, photograph it, and then I will bundle it all up and send it down to Devon, send it down to the National Trust.
It's a great
property.
idea, Faye. I think it's been going on for a couple of years now. Maybe this is about the third year. I can't quite remember, but I know it was on last year. I'm pretty sure it was on the year before. And the things that people make are absolutely stunning. Yeah.
And what they encourage you to do is add your name and where you've come from, so they can see how far around the UK this stuff has come. And of course, if you're one of our further afield listeners and you want to send something that would come to the UK and appear in a woodland in England with your name attached to it, seeing however far flung it's come from, please do. We'd love to receive it, we'd love to see it, and get some photos in situ in my place and then send them down to the mill.
I had a little look around Ravelry just to save you time, really, that if you think, oh, I'd like to get involved, to save you trying to find a suitable pattern, and found some patterns that I think are suitable, you know, that are written in English, because some of the patterns that looked amazing, but maybe they were in Spanish or something, so that was prove a little bit difficult. So I can put the links on. There's bats, there's fungi, there was I think I found a nice squirrel pattern as well. Found a few nice mammals, so yeah, I'll put the links on, and then you can go get the pattern, delve into your stash, knit, crochet up a little animal, mushroom, whatever,
and have it out on show for people to see and enjoy. What I really loved about this project is at the end of every exhibition they bring in all of the items, they wash them, they store them, and they go out the next year. So the exhibition just gets bigger and bigger year on year. So it's not a one-time thing. You don't put lots of effort into this and then that's it and they get binned and they hope that people will do the same again. They really take care of the items and they get a rebirth every single year, and that speaks to the environmental principles that we've got here at the Crochet Circle. So I'm really chuffed about that. If you'd like to get involved, information on the show notes. You would have to message me directly to be able to get my postal address to send stuff through, but I would love it if we had a massive batch of stuff going down from the Crochet Circle. So we also have a couple of competition giveaways for you. Both will be run through our Ravelry group, which is the Crochet Circle podcast. The first one up is some Regia Arnott and Carlos design line yarn, which is in the Colour Summerway. When we interviewed them, we also got them to sign one of the stash tags that I sell. So with the yarn, you'd get a nice little written message signed off by Arnott and Carlos, and also 6 stash tags. So that's that giveaway. That will run until the 31st of May, midnight GMT, and through our Ravelry thread. And then the other interview that we did, which will go out as a written interview, was with Cara Ackerman from DMC. And she very kindly gave us 4 balls of DMC's Natura medium just cotton and a nice little painted bamboo crochet hook and a leaflet with some amigurumi patterns in it as well. So if you would like to enter for either of those competitions, as I said, go through our Ravelry thread. You have until the 31st of May at midnight GMT. Final one from us is what's good.
What's good with you?
We've had 346 downloads of our podcast.
That's amazing.
I'm really chuffed. I would put this little podcast out thinking a few people might listen to us, and we're less than a month in and 346 people, and we've got really nice threads going on Ravelry and people following us on Instagram and Pinterest and Twitter, and it's just really nice. People are very engaged and they're lovely folk as well.
Thank you to everyone who's listened to episodes 1 and 2. Hope you also enjoy episodes 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, for me, what's good is I've been approached to write another book which is on knitting, so I can't really say too much about it at the moment, but yeah, really, really pleased. It's a really, really nice theme to it, so yeah, I'll tell you more about that. So that was exciting, along with the Yarndale.
Multi-book person.
Yeah. It's thought, one day I'd like to have a book out, knitting or crochet. And I think now that will be my 4th one. So, yeah. So it's with Search Press again anyway. Yeah. It's exciting.
Excellent. Well done. That's good news.
And that's it. Hopefully we've inspired you, helped you, given you pointers of where to look for different things. So any feedback that you've got, really welcome. And if you want to join us on Ravelry, you're more than welcome as well. Join the rest of the group.
And we'll see you or hear you or speak to you next time round.
Yep. Goodbye.
Bye.